Okay, I thought I'd just do a video on this Ryobi grinder, which is a CG180SPK, or grinder sander polisher. Basically I was just cut through a large piece of metal with this and it decided to self-destruct. Originally I was given this thing, it used to have a speed control up here, and that was broken. So I don't think it was running at all, or not very well or something, but I just pulled the old potentiometer off this, which was some sort of weird one, and just stuck a little trim pod in there. And you could actually tweak it a little bit if you wanted to, but I basically just set it at whatever speed and used it at that. But yeah, when I was cutting through a big piece of metal, it suddenly jammed up. This won't turn properly anymore. The little locking bit here is on a funny angle, the bit to lock it so you can undo the disc. So I guess I'll see if I can actually even get the disc off this, because I don't think I can get it apart without doing that. It seems to be coming off. So that's something. And I'll have to remove the safety guard so I can get to the screws. We should have organised some Allen keys before I started. I guess it'll be metric since it's a Japanese grinder. Something around this size, just at a random guess. That's close enough. I don't think that's quite the right size, but what's that, 6mm. Now that comes off. And we've got a few screws here. I assume if I take them out, would have been handy to have a battery drill ready. We might be able to see what's going on, I don't know. Yeah, looks like these other screws go into where the motor is, so I don't know if I can... Oh yes, this comes apart. That all seems to be alright. Maybe it's just something to do with that. Yeah, I think that pin must click into these holes in the gear. Oh no, we've definitely got a broken... I mean, that washer shouldn't be there for starters. We've got a washer there. Or did that fall off? Oh no, that just fell off one of those, I think, so that might have been my fault. But I can see this metal gear, or worm wheel, worm gear, whatever you call it. That is broken as. So I don't know why. It's obviously something's grabbed this lever to stop it and bent that. But yeah, that must be the gear that sits into these teeth. Oh yeah, the inside of those maybe, or is it? No, I think they're meant to be angled. That might be alright. Yeah, it's just a bit of grease on them, I think. They could be slightly damaged. Oh, that one's... Yeah, that tooth has actually been taken off, I think. Or has it? Seems lower than the others, or part of it. Yeah, no, definitely the centre of it's been broken out, and the edge of that one looks broken. Yeah, none of them look, yeah, some are a bit flattened maybe, so that's probably not a good sign. That could have been from use before anyway. But that looks like what's actually failed, where these two nuts are on the end here, so it's, you can definitely see it's a piece broken out of it, or part of it's shifted around, so that's probably why I've actually cut the power cord off this now, because I thought that'll be useful for something else. But I might actually take this motor part out. I don't think much is available in the way for parts for these things anymore. You couldn't get, I think, what was it, something odd about the fitting on it. I couldn't get another polisher part for it, I don't think. There was something odd about the size. But I did quite a bit of cutting and grinding with this thing. It was just given to me anyway, and it was handy to have a second one just so I could leave the metal cutting disc in one grinder and the stone cutter in the other, which is the two things I tend to use the most. Those out of the way. Don't know if that's just going to come apart. There's rotating, that's a sign. Looks like we've got a couple of brushes in here somewhere. Bigger screwdriver would help. Often you've got to take these brushes out before you can take the motor out. Yeah, they've had a fair bit of use. There's a bit still on, they're not too bad. Yeah, to be fair, they may not have been that much longer anyway. Now, I don't know if this will pull out, or do we have to go further? I guess in for a penny, in for a pound. That's come loose, hasn't it? The Makita chucks like to come loose if you don't super tighten them by hand. Flip blade for this really, but it might fit in that and just get it out. Since it's at hand, is that going to come apart or have I missed something? Oh, I had it apart once before, so it can't be that hard. It's just clipped together maybe. Yeah, that's all it is. And probably a bit of dust and stuff helping to hold it together. Feels like we've still got something. Taking those screws out. No, it's just tight. A lot of dust and muck in it. So that's the inside of the electrical part. I'll take that clamp off the cord. I actually need one of those for my jackhammer, so I might keep that, might fit that as well. So yeah, we've got our switch. I guess just a capacitor to dampen any sort of arcing RF from the switch. Probably protects the contacts I should say as well, and that's, oops, that's our little electronic circuit board. Yeah, it looks like I've had to cut the plastic, or not, what's more a rubbery thing. Yeah, this isn't a hard epoxy, it's just some sort of rubbery coating, more like silicone, that they put on the boards to protect them from liquids and stuff. And so I've just soldered this little standard circuit board trim pot in there in place of the original switch. There'd be a little, probably much like a light dimmer, some sort of control chip there and a triac on this heatsink. Pretty standard sort of setup I would assume. Now, why does this motor bit not want to come out? This is the other problem, we've got connections to it obviously. Could even be these, got a little toroidal ferrite thing there, interference suppression or something. Maybe there's one on the other side here too. Doesn't want to come out of its little hole. So those might be helping to hold things in place. Though these should only go up to the, or do they? No, actually they must go to the motor coils as well, not just the brushes I think. Or is it just, yeah, because that's just the stator probably has. Yeah, these ones go to the brushes. I can see a spring around the little brass piece. Do we connect into the coils? No, I should just go through the other bit maybe. It does not want to pull out in a hurry. Does this other half come off? Looks like it does. Eventually. Oh, it's a little attached. There we go. Okay, so we get both arms of the back off. I don't know if that's anything, no, just a bit of plastic I think. Oh yeah, no, we are connected to the coils I think. Yeah, so those black wires go to our brushes here and the other bits go through the coils by the look of it, so that should, it's probably this back bearings just holding things in place. Probably if you just prise between case and, oh yes, that's all it made. Yeah, there's the whole, oh yeah, it's just a rubber piece around the back bearing. So you just need to prise between those two bits. I don't like to force anything without making sure there's nothing. So that's our motor coil in there. Whoop. Couple of super long screws there. They're actually quite handy things to hang on to for the odd occasion. If you've got to repair broken light on your car or something, those sort of things can come in handy. And obviously I wouldn't be pushing on this with a screwdriver from behind if I wanted to look after it. But since this is probably just going to end up in a scrap metal, just might as well chop the electronic bit off it. Well, then we've got these in the way. Yeah, you probably would have had to pop the springs off the... Yeah, that's how you do it. That's why they've done it that way. You pop the little... Well, it's not even a spring, exactly that coiled up bit off the... bit for the brushes, then you can pull these wires, or at least free, and then I guess poke them back. Have to unclip them from these little bits that hold them. Do they come out of there? Maybe they don't. Yeah, they should. Very tight fit by the look of it, but if you push that loose, then you can poke these wires. Oops. Actually, you have to poke it with a toroidal. That should just fit through. God, how do you get them back again? That's not going to be much fun. Not that I have to do it, but if you did pull this apart, that's a bit of a pain. You just probably poke a wire and pull everything. Poke a wire through the hole first, or just poke these down and get some needle nose pliers or whatever. I guess I shouldn't do it that way, quite that brutal, but see if I can get this to pull out. Chances are if you're taking one of these to bits, it's probably stuffed anyway. But yeah, you should be gentle, because if you push on the copper wire or anything, you're likely to damage it. But in this case, I'm not too fussed about that. I could just bang it out with that coming. Probably that much dust and stuff in there is making it a bit reluctant to come out. It's definitely going to damage it, but hopefully I can't see. All I can see is copper wire in there, so normally you'd try not to touch the copper wire. It is slowly coming, I think. Oh, there's a big flat blade, that's what I need. But definitely don't do this with a motor you want to save. Yeah, it's starting to come down, there we go. So yeah, just got a couple of brass bits there for the brushes, which is what these little copper bits sat around, the little groove in them. A bit more plastic for the rubbish, and that's all we've really got. The stator, or whatever you call it, the still part of the motor, and it's just a couple of coils. Yeah, in through the coil and back out to the brush, and it goes through this part, I think, and back again. So this is, I can now rotate that. It's actually a gear, looks like a conical sort of gear. What's left of it, and that's, you know, that's what our brushes sit on. I often find if the motors have been overheated or anything, these little parts will actually start coming off. These little copper segments that go to all the different coils in the rotor part, or the commutator. A bit of a fan on the front of it, and it looks like I probably have to undo those bolts to get that to come backwards, I'm guessing. Yeah, I reckon, yeah, the shaft goes through a bearing. It's got the gear and those two nuts on it there. Don't know if a little shifter will just get in there. It might do. Everything's going to get covered in grease. Absolutely wonderful. I've obviously got the two nuts so that one locks the other in. These may even be reverse thread or something annoying. No. Seems to be just normal thread. Yeah, there's probably no way of actually undoing these without actually getting this commutator bit of the motor in your hand and holding it. I don't know that they're even going to come off without. I think this is going to have to slide back. Oh, the other one's loose now. Ugh. Grease everywhere, absolutely disgusting. I'm not a fan of grease or silicone on my hands. I hate that slippery stuff all over my hands. Just one of those things I don't like. Yeah, I might have to... maybe I'll grab that with some pliers. And this motor doesn't turn because that broken gear. But if I wind them right up to the end, even the thread on that thing doesn't feel right. It feels like it's... this should. But it doesn't come backwards. Does that move forward? It has absolutely destroyed that gear. I don't know, I wasn't I didn't think I was overdoing it. It was just a large piece of metal, but maybe it sort of grabbed a big piece of angle iron post I wanted to cut it a bit shorter. And I was just cutting it pretty normally, and it just, yeah, maybe it grabbed or something. Don't think it was near the end where the post can, like, you know, move the hole, the slot you're cutting can close up on or something like that. I don't think it was at that point. I don't think I got it that far into it. And it just went crunch, and that was into that. Well, that nut might just come off. So it'll come off, but will it come out? It tilts, but it won't actually fit off. Bit of a silly design. Maybe I need to get the other one back a bit. I don't think that'll help, but anything's worth a try. No, so that gear slides forward. There, the broken remains. It is a conical type gear. So I mean, if you could get that part for it, I'd probably fix it and keep it going for years again, but like I say, it's kind of obsolete, this one. I don't think you can even get the right sized discs for it anymore. You actually have to use, what was it? I forget. Was it? It's not a 230mm. It must be 180 or something. Well, that was, what was the model number? Yeah, 180. So it was a 180mm, which I don't think you can even get discs for anymore. You've got to use them in a used 230mm discs that you've already used a bit until they're small enough diameter to fit on this thing. So I'm not fussed about fixing the thing. It seems to be pretty jammed in that. I wonder if you're better off putting the nuts back on it, but not fully on, and trying to jam something between the end of the shaft and where the other gear that I pulled out first actually sits. I don't know if I can get that other one back on now. You know, ideally I think you just about clean all the grease out of this thing before you start working on it. That should sit on there, but yeah, starting the thread's not going to be much fun. Oh, that was nearly it. I think it was, oh yeah, if it sits something like that. Oh, nearly. If I can at least get that out of the way, it might do, but no, it's not gonna. Oh yeah, there we go. I actually got it biting the thread, I think. Come on, it's turning it backwards, not the way I want. Yuck. It stinks too, like most grease. Lovely stuff. If I can force something in there, maybe I can get this to slide backwards, but it doesn't seem to want to. Not with that amount of force. Just trying to work out if that's... looks like a flat part on the shaft, but if that just goes into a bearing, it wouldn't need a... almost looks like it's rotated in the shaft or something. In the bearing. But I don't think that's... Why would it have a flat bit there? Is that just to hold the conical gear? I'm not sure about that. I can't see anything because of this damn fan on the inside. I would assume it should pop out of the bearing, or I might just go and just whack a great big screwdriver or something in there in between this bit. Now if you wanted to salvage this thing, I'm not sure that's the ideal way to do it, but I'll see what I've got. I wouldn't be able to do it on camera with a great big, I don't even know what sort of Stanley that is, but it's a big one. As big as they come in a Stanley screwdriver set anyway. Oh yeah, that's got it, that's pushing quite nicely. So it always just needs a little bit more force. Now I can take those nuts off. That's one. Get that out of there. I'm not even sure where to put that because it's covered in grease. And get this second one. I'm pretty sure this second one's sitting on kind of sideways. It's like the threads in it are not right or something. It doesn't feel right when you're trying to unscrew it. So maybe something's been going all the time, or maybe that's part of the... When the gear finally failed, it took that out as well. It's damaged the threads inside that nut. Don't think the threads on the shaft are damaged, and the shaft is probably a lot harder metal than the nut is. So yeah, this, I mean, what I was cutting, I mean, just cutting it shouldn't really be beyond a grinder to do that, but I say the problem with that thick metal, if something closes in on the blade or something, or it bites for any reason, yeah, it's enough to destroy the grinder if you're not careful. I don't think I've ever broken one before. I've had a bearing wear out on my other one, but that did a lot of hard work cutting rocks and stuff, so, and it was only a cheapie. So I just got a couple of new bearings off eBay and it's going as good as new again. So I think for $8 or something I got it back on the road again now. Is this going to pull back? No. Don't know if I can still jam that or not. Maybe I need to get that gear off, would be a good idea. It's moving just when I can actually grip something, jam the screwdriver against something. I'd say not the ideal way of doing it. It probably needed, if you're trying to salvage this thing, you'd probably squirt some penetrating fluid in there or something. And there it is. I wonder where the other part of it is. Must be in the grease here somewhere. But that's our little conical sort of worm gear thing. And yeah, it's missing quite a decent chunk, and the other, so that was what sat on that shaft. I noticed it had flat bits on the shaft. Obviously that is meant to go up inside and hold this and stop it from turning. On top of the nuts, and the nuts push that on onto the flat shaft. But we've lost our other flat. I think the gear was actually cut down lower in the middle, which makes it a bit weaker, so it's not as deep as where those flats are. But yeah, it's shattered that bit off it. And of course the tooth cuts right down through most of it. There's not actually a lot of metal there. Not actually much at all. So it's not surprising that wasn't very strong. I think the part's down under here. There it is. It's down underneath where that one was sitting, so it's just dropped underneath the gear. Not surprising it hasn't gone very far. But I think that jammed the motor up when that happened, or something. It didn't sound very happy, so I don't think it was turning. So if this had just dropped out of the way, the motor would have kept spinning. Although if that other thing that locks the disc in place is pushing in. And that's it, that's the piece. So yeah, it's very little metal holding that together. So it originally had a slot for the end of the shaft there. but that is a tiny amount of, under a millimetre thick probably at the pointy end, and it's not that much thicker there, maybe up to 2 millimetres at the thick end. So that's very little holding that together, so I can see why it wouldn't take much just to snap it. If that other bit, maybe that pin dropped in or something, I don't know what would have happened there. If that other piece for some reason dropped into one of these holes, that would have stopped this gear. It's almost like that other bit did fall in, because the fact it's bent sideways, I don't see, if that was sprung up out of the way, I don't see why that could get damaged, or how it could get damaged. So I wonder if the spring failed or something and it fell down. Still got good spring. Almost be interesting to take that out and see why it seems to be going sideways. Yuck. Not sure what even holds that in. It is a circlip there. Is it a circlip? Oh, it's definitely a circlip. Whoop, that just shot out. I was going to say there's a spring on that, I better be careful, but too late. So that's just a shaft with a spring under it. Not surprisingly. Maybe that always did sit on that angle, maybe it's just my imagination. It seemed to be sideways. But that shaft does actually go on a bit of an angle by the look of it, so maybe I just spotted that afterwards and thought, oh, it does seem a bit worn. It's got quite a bit of play in it, which, I mean, maybe it always did. Maybe I just noticed afterwards that it was sitting on a bit of an angle. That hole definitely seems to have a bit too much play, but maybe it always was that way. Yeah, there's not much stopping the grease getting out, but I guess with that circlip on there most of the time it's not being used. While the machine's running, it's sitting on that circlip and that seals it pretty well. But anyway, another useless bit of information. It still doesn't want to come out. I haven't really got anything to grip a screw, push a lever, a screwdriver against to actually knock that out. And it's got this plastic fan on the other side, which makes it impossible to really. Well, have I got something down in there I can? I think there might be, but I don't know if I can get a big screwdriver in there anyway. Probably not. I'm levering on the fan, which is not recommended. And that's just flexing as expected. I can't get a deeper screwdriver. I think there is a little step on the shaft there. Yeah, it wasn't much on it, so that bearing's probably not as lubricated. Well, actually it's not meant to be lubricated because the bearing itself is lubricated. This shaft's meant to turn with the bearing, so that's alright, okay. Yeah, the thread on this bit seems to be fine. So this bit's obviously pretty hardened metal and survives okay, but that nut is decidedly wobbly as it goes on. It's eccentric as, so whether that was a factory issue or it might just be a very crappy nut. Don't think that contributed though. Maybe both of them are like it. Doesn't want to go on at all, that one. There we go. You know, that one goes on nice and straight. Very little play in it. Now I've got grease right all over myself. Lovely. That is like wobbling side to side as it goes around. Don't think it doesn't have much play in it. Yeah, it's just a badly made. I think someone machined the thread in that like while it was slightly sideways or something. So yeah, so you'd have to get a kit of the two two parts of this anyway. This gear would have to go. It's got like a circlipped, external circlip there that needs spreading out to remove. So I doubt you'd even get parts for these, and if you did, probably halfway to the price of a new one anyway. So there'd be another bearing in here, which if you took that off, you'd be able to knock that shaft one way or the other and possibly take the bearing out with it with a bit of luck. But it's not good, not much good for anything but scrap metal now. I thought it'd be worth a quick look inside just to see what had failed, whether it's repairable. You know, if you just spent a few $100s on this new not long ago and it was a useful tool to you, you'd probably fix the thing. But given this one cost me nothing except the time to put that solder that little trim pod in there, and I've actually given it a fair bit of work. I don't cut that much stuff with it, but it's cut a fair bit of metal, gone through a few discs on it, and it was fine until I did that big metal post. But oh well, she's a bit of irony aluminium there to go in one bin for scrap, and the motor can go in another bin for scrap along with its coils, and at least that'll get recycled. And I guess I could technically go in the e-waste or something, but don't know if I could use a speed controller for something. Probably not. Trigger switch might be worth hanging on to. Nice if you could work out how to get rid of that safety feature sometimes, but probably on a grinder not the best idea, but they can be annoying. And there's a perfectly good suppression capacitor there. So yeah, I think I'll just chuck most of that away. A couple of nice big long screws and stuff are worth keeping. And probably a few of these other metal thread type screws. But that bearing's pretty well, you wouldn't use a second-hand bearing out of something like this anyway, because it's had that much grit and grime through it potentially, because one side of it's sort of, even though it had that cover, it's exposed where basically all the grit and stuff can come in there. Something would have worked its way in there over the years. So yeah, it's not, that sort of stuff's not worth keeping. A couple of brushes, they're probably actually worth keeping just in case in an emergency. They'd probably fit other motors. If you really wanted to get something going again temporarily until you can get a proper set, probably worth keeping. And I've got a perfectly good grinder tool with no grinder now, so we'll find a new home for that with someone. Anyway, thanks for watching.